I think you all know that I've always felt the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Times are tough, but I want you to know that help is on the way. Help is here. Let me be the clearest on this point. Help is on the way.
President Biden, you'll remember a while back, he said help is on the way. And then he signed that American Rescue Plan, so I would say help is here.
Good morning, Ronald. How are you today?
Hello, Council. My name is Ronald Grimaldi, though I'm perhaps more well-known locally as Ronnie the Clown. I want to thank you for having me here. It really means a lot to me. As someone in my profession, Mayor Wheeler has been a great inspiration to me. A few months ago, I was involved in a motor accident and I broke my funny bone. As a clown, this put me out of commission until I could get proper therapy. Unfortunately, my health care under the Affordable Care Act didn't cover such treatment. I would need a proprietary plan for something like that, which is only offered under prices that are unreasonable for someone in my situation. I tried to apply for disability checks, but I was apparently not eligible. This puts me in a very difficult financial situation. The raison d'etre of my presence at this civic meeting of the Portland community is to address the multitudinous issues that I and many executives similar to myself have been experiencing amidst the ongoing pandemic. For one, as numerous individuals of our community have been out of work, busking has been a source of income. This reliance on pedestrian income is already unfortunate without the problem the PPB produces. The police crackdown on public busking has forced me to rely on inferior art forms such as miming and jesting for alternative incomes. This won't be as much of a problem when the pandemic ends and I can go back to gigging as a party clown, but, you know, honk on wood, as I like to say. Now, I just want to speak from my heart. As a clown, I certainly don't feel underrepresented in local government and law enforcement. It's just that the measures taken to benefit me and people of my motley profession and identity feel unsatisfactory and inconsequential. Since I already know that Mr. Wheeler will take great actions after having listened to my statements, I, as a member of the Clowning Society of America, would like to nominate Mr. Edward Tevis Wheeler for Clown of the Year and immediately instate him as an honorary clown commissioner. The Clowning Society of America stands with you, Mr. Wheeler. Thank you. I yield the rest of my time.
Ali, in an unprecedented move, a code brown has been declared.
That's racist.
This is Nurse Danielle. She's putting on all the PPE, of course, required to go inside that COVID ward. You know, she would do that each and every day and then, of course, spend long shifts inside. Steve's just going to take you inside that COVID ward, of course, as far as we can go. Of course, we can see some workers in there in their full PPE.
Busted. Oh.
I never imagined how quickly this would all unfold. The person they sold on the campaign, the nice old, moderate grandpa who just wanted to help everybody get along and compromise, is not what we got over the last year. He has no mandate really to do much of anything. It's amazing that he got a couple of things done when the mandate was really pretty clear. 50-50 Senate, a near 50-50 House, and a pretty close presidential election. The mandate was simply replace Donald Trump and don't do anything drastic or stupid. And everything about this agenda is extremely drastic. And he's been angrier than I think people expected. He's been more divisive. He's been more partisan. You look at the issues. We built 5 years of coverage on Trump out of Russia, COVID, and democracy. The president at his press conference invites Russia to invade the Ukraine. We got more deaths under Biden than Trump. And now we have the president and vice president and leading Democrats question the legitimacy of the 2022 election. Are we any better off on these 3 issues that we crucified Trump over? I think he has a lot of political problems, and an AP poll came out this morning. Only 28% of Americans want the sitting president to run for re-election, and fewer than half of Democrats. This is a disaster.
Poll released this morning by Politico Morning Consult found 49% of registered voters disagreeing with the statement, Joe Biden is mentally fit. Wow. Not even a majority of Democrats who responded strongly affirmed that statement.
Well, I'll let you all make the judgment whether they're correct.
Well, so the question I have for you, sir, if you'd let me finish, is why do you suppose such large segments of the American electorate have come to harbor such profound concerns about your cognitive fitness? Thank you.
I have no idea.
Shit, ass, piss, dink. Where's the soap? I'm so hungry.
Because democracy basically means government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded.
Then strangled them, and finally dismembered their bodies.
Right. And homelessness and all that.
And now, the voice you've been waiting for.
There is a secret song at the center of the world, and its sound is like razors through flesh. I'm here to turn up the volume.
And allegedly he purchased it on the street. Now, what that means, I don't know. Whether he purchased from an individual in a homeless shelter or a homeless community, or whether because that's where he said he was, it's hard to tell. I just don't know.
Is there any ramifications for the push to ensure that guns are not available?
Oh, no, well, it does, but it also doesn't. The guns are, we should be. The idea of background checks are critical, but you can't stop something like this if someone is on the street buying something from somebody else on the street.
It almost seems like all of the so-called common sense gun control they're always pushing wouldn't do anything to change shit. And somewhere off camera, a bunch of his handlers and advisors were like,
No! What the fuck, y'all? God damn!
I don't think there is sufficient information to know about why he targeted that synagogue, why he insisted on the release of someone who's been in prison for over 10 years, why he was engaged, why he was using anti-Semitic and anti-Israeli comments. We just don't have enough facts. Thank you.
Yes, what on earth would possess him to make anti-Semitic comments? That is a mystery. If a Raggedy Ann doll could have a baby with Chucky, what would it look like? Yep. And she's had her work cut out for her lately. Every time Biden gets up and says some stupid, goofy shit, she has to come and explain it and make it sound reasonable. And this week was a doozy. On Thursday, somebody apparently thought it was a good idea to have Biden do a long press conference in the early evening hours. He does much better in the mornings, most old people do. But it was the 1-year anniversary of his inauguration, and so I guess he wanted to get up and talk about all of his achievements for his first year. It did not go very well, mostly because he doesn't have any. At least not positive ones, anyway. And the next day, Psaki had to come out and do a lot of backpedaling, like when he started talking about Russia and the Ukraine and said that, oh, well, if Russia just does a minor incursion, well, then we'll have to talk and, see what we're going to do about it. And that even prompted the president of Ukraine to tweet out, and I'm paraphrasing here, but basically, what the fuck? Then he starts talking about the elections coming up, the midterms, and saying that, oh, well, they might be illegitimate because we didn't get our so-called Voting Rights Act passed, and so that could be a real problem. The legitimacy of this election is proportional to the fact that we didn't get that passed. And at one point he even said, can you think of any other president that has done as much in 1 year?
Around this time last year when you were campaigning in Georgia, I think one of the things you told people was the power is literally in your hands. If voters give Democrats the House and the Senate and the presidency, that all these big things can get accomplished. And, we've seen stalemate, we've seen things being stymied. Why should folks believe you this time around?
Can you think of any other president that's done as much in 1 year? Name one for me.
I'm asking you.
I'm serious.
What, done as much fucking up? I almost fell out of my seat laughing.
And the fact of the matter is we got an awful lot done. An awful lot done. And there's more to get done. But look, let me ask a rhetorical question. No, I won't. Anyway.
He's definitely given us more laughs than any other president in their first year.
Let's go, Brandon. I agree.
But this whole Ukraine situation is no joke. Right now, the tensions are at the highest point they've been since the fucking Cuban Missile Crisis in '62. 2 weeks ago, we started having talks with them, and after a week of negotiations and deliberations, we came out of it basically saying that we don't know what the Russians even really want, because their demands are just so crazy that we don't even know what they're really after. Well, what were their demands? Well, the major demand is that Ukraine not be accepted into NATO. I mean, that seems pretty straightforward and simple, but to us that's just so crazy that we don't even know what they could really be after, because I mean, they might as well ask us to give them the moon. And we had Jen Psaki come out and say that they had intelligence that Russia could be preparing to attack themselves so that they could justify an invasion into Ukraine.
We have information that indicates Russia has already prepositioned a group of operatives to conduct a false flag operation in eastern Ukraine. The operatives are trained in urban warfare and in using explosives to carry out acts of sabotage against Russia's own proxy forces. Our information also indicates that Russian influence actors are already starting to fabricate Ukrainian provocations in state and social media to justify a Russian intervention and sow divisions in Ukraine. For example, Russian officials and influence actors are emphasizing narratives about the deterioration of human rights in Ukraine and the increased militancy of Ukrainian leaders. This is all the spreading of misinformation.
And I guess we would know, right? I mean, false flags are our bread and butter. Coups and wars and all kinds of shit over the years based on incidents that we provoked or carried out ourselves. So I guess it takes one to know one. But whether or not Russia is actually planning to attack their own troops, or somebody else attacks their troops and then claims that, oh no, Russia attacked themselves and now they're trying to blame somebody else, they're giving every indication that in this particular case they are not fucking around. We had a hand in helping to overthrow the government of Ukraine back in 2014, and things have been a little rough there ever since. In the eastern third of the country, there have been battles between separatists who want to be more aligned with Russia because ethnically they are Russian, have been fighting it out with forces that are being armed and supplied by the new Ukrainian government. Some people have said that these Ukrainian forces, such as the Azov Battalion, are Nazis. I don't know why they would get that kind of idea. I mean, it's, oh, well, I guess maybe all the pictures of them with their flag and swastikas and the Sieg Heiling and shit. Maybe that has something to do with it. But somehow those are the good guys, and those are the forces that we're backing. And now, on top of the buildup of 100,000 Russian troops on the border with Ukraine, they've also had the biggest deployment of their military, soldiers and ships, that we've seen since World War II. They're sending them out to the Black Sea, the Mediterranean, the Atlantic, the Pacific. And if something jumps off and any of these NATO countries get involved, I mean, this is not that dissimilar from the way World War I started. We've got NATO countries from the UK to the Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, sending in Javelin anti-tank missiles, Stinger surface-to-air missiles, and dipshit senators in our country talking about this the same way we talked about going into Kuwait back in '91.
We need to stand strong and unified in letting Vladimir Putin and Russia know that should there be another physical invasion of Ukraine, that the consequences will be devastating for Russia, both in terms of sanctions. We talked about Nord Stream 2 earlier. Nord Stream 2 was a bad idea. It's an even worse idea now that Russia has mobilized this massive, unwarranted force along the border of Ukraine. But the other sanctions that must be discussed publicly and made clear would go much further than just sanctioning Nord Stream 2, which of course has to happen. We also need to let Russia know that we are going to provide additional military, defensive, lethal weapons to Ukraine. Already we are doing that, and I was pleased to see as we left Ukraine yesterday that the C-17 landed. It was from the UK, one of our strong allies, and it had within it anti-tank weapons that Ukraine badly needs to be able to respond should Russia and Vladimir Putin make a terrible mistake. But we need to continue that, and should there be an additional invasion, we need to let the world know that there will be substantially more of those kinds of military weapons and assistance provided to Ukraine, as well as additional buildup of NATO forces in other Eastern European countries, and a commitment, an ironclad commitment, that the free world, not just the United States, not just NATO, but that the free world will stand strong.
And don't forget, 6 weeks ago, Senator Wicker from Mississippi, who was on the same committee as Portman, said this.
Action could mean that we stand off with our ships in the Black Sea and we rain destruction on Russian military capability. It could mean that. It could mean that we participate, and I would not rule that out. I would not rule out American troops on the ground. We don't rule out first use nuclear action.
The problem with this is that Russia is not Iraq. If this jumps off into a full-blown conflict, it could get real ugly real quick.
My calculations are correct. You're gonna see some serious shit.
So we shouldn't be talking about it so willy-nilly. Talking about, oh, we need to give Putin a bloody nose if he does anything in the Ukraine. Like it's that fucking simple. At the end of the day, would it really be such a horrible thing if we would just agree to not let Ukraine join NATO? I mean, this isn't just Russia's neighborhood or sphere or backyard. This is their fucking front porch. They're willing to fight over it. And honestly, I can't blame them. Sláinte.
All I have in this world is my thoughts and my words, and I don't break them for no one. You understand? So say good night. So say good night to the bad guy. So say good night. So say good night to the bad guy. So say good night. So say good night to the bad guy. So say good night. So say good night to the bad guy. Come on. Come on. night. So say good night. So say good night to the bad guy. I told you, don't fuck with me. 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 You stupid fuck. Look at you now.